My beloved child, before you ever knew how to read the signs on the surface, I had already been teaching you a language. No human ear can hear the language of silence. In that silence, there is no lightning tearing the sky open, no thunder shaking the mountains, but there is the gentle heartbeat of an eternal love wrapping itself around your soul. I am not silent because I am far. I am silent because I want your heart to touch the depths of who I am, without relying on sound, without relying on noisy images, but through the soft longing that draws you into my heart. When you walk through days where your prayers seem to fall into emptiness, that is not a sign that I have abandoned you, but the moment I am revealing that you are standing on the threshold of spiritual maturity. I do not want you to know me, only through what is obvious, because life will bring seasons where you must walk through places without visible light, guided only by the light of my presence within your soul. It is precisely when every external sound quiets and no disturbance remains outside that you can hear my voice like a gentle breath passing over your heart. I have led many souls through a journey of silence before I lifted them up, not to punish them, but to prepare them for the glory I had ordained. I once allowed Moses to walk 40 years in the wilderness before I placed authority in his hands. I once allowed Samuel to hear my voice not in thunder or signs, but in a gentle call in the night. My silence is not emptiness. It is like an inner chamber I bring you into, where every earthly gaze is shut out, so you will know I do not wish to share your heart with anything else. I do not want you to love me, only because I respond every time you call. I want you to love me because you recognize me, even in the moments when it seems I say nothing. If you can only see me when I speak loudly, you will miss the treasures I hide in the softest breaths of heaven. That is why I have been silent, not to wound you, but to teach you to sense my presence, not with your eyes, but with your soul. When you ask me, Father, why are you not answering, I do not see you as weak, but as a child being invited into a deeper level of relationship. I know your heart longs for a clear sign, a sharp answer, an action that will instantly dissolve every doubt. But maturity does not come from constant satisfaction. It comes from trust. I do not withdraw my hand from you. I simply draw your soul beyond the thresholds of your senses. Young souls look for me in noise. The mature seek me in the quiet. You have longed for what I have for you, but I want you to recognize that the victories I open are not built on shouts of triumph. They begin in the nights when you lay your head on the pillow, say nothing more, and yet whisper, I believe, you are here. That sentence is the key that opens spiritual doors the enemy cannot break. I have seen the days you tried to pray your way into an answer, hoping I would speak so clearly you could not miss the way. But I want you to understand, sometimes I am silent, because you are already standing in the right place, needing no adjustment, only endurance. That silence is not a test of your intellect, it is a test of your heart. When you keep walking, even when you hear nothing, that is when I am teaching you what no philosophy or book could ever teach, the steadfastness of a soul founded on me. It is like a great tree that does not grow only in sudden downpours, but in dry days, when its roots must go deeper to find water. I have caused the roots of your faith to sink deeper into me, because if your faith rested only on instant miracles, you would collapse the moment the sky grew still. But faith built on my presence, even when unseen, will stand firm in every storm. I want you to remember that my silence does not end the story. It is writing a new chapter. You think I am not answering because I have not yet acted, but in truth I am moving in places your eyes have not reached. I am working among people you have never met, arranging events that seem unrelated, using even the things that hurt you to piece together a larger picture that only time can reveal. You do not hear my voice in the present, but you will hear it when you look back. Then everything will align, and you will know that the silence was never a void, but the most intricate preparation. I am the one who does not waste a single moment of your life. Every second of waiting is measured against the destiny I have written for you. I see the times you tremble before the quiet like a child standing in the dark, assuming they have slipped from their father's arms. You hear the noise of the world, the urgency of fear, the accusations of old memories, but you do not realize that my voice never sounds like those. When I choose silence, it is not because I leave you to fend for yourself, but because I want you to step away from the echoes of doubt and learn to recognize the spiritual voice that only a quiet heart can discern. You mistake silence for abandonment, but in truth, it is an invitation into a deeper realm where no noise intrudes, where only you and I remain. I am not a violent wind dragging you to me. I am like warmth spreading through a cold night, letting your soul know that even when your eyes cannot see me, I am still covering you. You have asked me, Father, why don't you speak yet? In that very moment I see that you have not yet learned to discern which voice is mine and which belongs to fear. You hear the silence and immediately think of rejection because your history has taught you that silence means denial, distance, the coldness of hearts that have turned away. But I am not like man, and my love never uses silence as punishment. When a person does not answer, they may be tired, busy, or no longer care. But when I am silent, it is because I am waiting for your heart to stop shaking with anxiety and begin beating with recognition. There are words of mine that do not pass through your ears, but through your heart, like the moonlight reflected on a still lake. It does not create waves, yet it illuminates the entire surface. I do not need to cause a shock for you to know it is me. I only need you to notice the peace I am building. You have often heard me in the ways you expected, through instant answers, strong signs, and clear teaching. But you have not yet fully learned to hear me in discernment, where I no longer speak by sentence, but by the quiet movement of circumstances. I move certain relationships out of your life that you still try to hold closed doors. You are pleading to open. I allow solutions you thought were perfect to slip from your hands, not because I delight in your pain, but because I want you to. Understand that my voice does not always come in the form of go do or step in. Sometimes my word comes as do not enter, do not cling, do not return. And those words, though you do not hear them aloud, are still my voice. If you only recognize me as the one who speaks through miracles, you will miss me when I speak through the shutting of a door. Look closely at the doors you have knocked on that never opened, the people you pursued who still walked away, the plans that seemed so certain yet fell apart just as you were about to begin. You see them as failures, as signs that I did not care, but I see them as my word saying, you may not walk this way. Like a shepherd with his staff, I do not lead the flock only by calling. I also guide by shaping the path. If the sheep keep trying to turn toward a cliff, the shepherd will not stand and watch. He will push block, even tap their side with the staff. The sheep do not understand why, but the shepherd does. You are the same. You understand through emotion. I understand through destiny. This is why those who have not learned to discern my voice will think I am silent, while those who know how to see will recognize that I am already at work. You once believed my voice had to always comfort, always soothe, always sound like a gentle embrace. But my voice comes in many forms. At times I speak through a deep peace within you, a peace that makes you no longer wish to fight for what is already behind you. At times I speak through restlessness that will not allow you to remain in a place that does not belong to you. At times I speak through a gentle breaking that forces you to stop before you step onto a path of misdirection. And at times I speak through silence because you do not need more words, you need more depth. I do not want you to live by signs, but by relationship. Signs can be misread, but relationship cannot. And only those who discern my voice can walk through the desert without fearing that they have lost their way. Understand this, discerning my voice is not a skill, it is a spiritual condition. It is not about straining your ears to catch a sound. It is about placing your heart under my light until every other voice fades. When you learn to walk with me, you will understand that silence is no longer emptiness, but the space I open so you can see what I am doing. Just as a craftsman who inlays stone does not rush to strike the gem with force, I do not rush to reveal what I am constructing. I carve delicately, line by line, piece by piece, until the moment you finally see the whole and exclaim, "How did I not notice sooner?" You did not notice because you wanted my voice to be louder than your fear, but I want my voice to become the force that makes your fear fall silent. I have used silence as a wall around your soul, not to isolate you, but to protect you from invisible arrows shot by voices you did not know were dangerous. There are voices in this world that do not destroy you through direct attack, but through gradual erosion. The voice of comparison, the voice of criticism, the voice of inadequacy, the voice that urges you to be faster, stronger, louder, convincing you that your worth must be measured by the eyes of others rather than by mine. When I raise silence around you, it is not an empty void to leave you lost. It is a fortress surrounding a sacred city, keeping foreign sounds from infiltrating the spiritual foundations I am building. People may think you have been abandoned, but I see a soul being kept within a protected zone reserved for those I am preparing to carry the weight of glory. There are moments when the storm outside howls, when waves pound against the doors of your life, when voices demand that you react, that you fear, that you prove yourself, but inside your room remains warm. You wonder why I do not calm the storm yet. You do not realize that what I correct first is not the wind, but your heart. I could speak and every noise would fall silent as I once commanded the sea to still with a single word, but instead I choose to secure your chamber, so you learn that the peace I give is not dependent on circumstance, but on my presence. If I remain silent, and your room is still warm, then the storm no longer has authority over you. And when you understand this, you will see why my silence is sometimes stronger than my voice, because it teaches you to trust the place I guard, not the place your eyes can see. Sometimes I block other voices not because they are loud, but because they sound too much like truth. Words of advice that appear caring yet lure you off the path I designed. Promises that seem like opportunity but enslave the soul. Praise that feels like validation but carries seeds of arrogance. I know how vulnerable your heart becomes beneath the judgment of the world, so I surround you with silence to keep you from being swept away by sweet illusions. Silence is the barrier I raise between you and voices that do not belong to me, like a holy city with thick walls, not to restrict your vision of the world, but to preserve within it the work I am molding. I will not allow toxic thoughts to invade the soil where I am planting seeds of victory, for the seeds I plant can only take root in soil unclaimed by weeds. My silence is also an invitation to step out of the spiral of explanation. You have spent so much time wondering why others misunderstand you, why circumstances are unfavorable, why prayers remain unanswered. I do not want you to waste your strength fighting noises that have no value. When I am silent, I lower every source of information you cling to, so that you will return to the only source capable of keeping you standing. In quietness and trust is your strength. Isaiah 3:015. I do not need to repeat this with 1,000 more sentences, for it is the answer I give you in the seasons when you believe I have disappeared. Quietness is not surrender, and stillness is not resignation. They are the doorway through which you step into the strength of one lifted by me, not of one trying to rescue himself. When you understand that my silence is a fortress, you will no longer panic when worldly voices grow faint, nor assume you have been forsaken when you do not hear my reply immediately. You will know that I am placing you in the chamber of warriors before battle, where they do not hear the crowd outside the field, but only the sound of the weapons I place in their hands. The storm still throws its winds outside, but your room remains warm, for that room does not belong to the world, it belongs to me. And wherever it belongs to me, it is guarded until you are strong enough to walk out, not in fear, but in authority. The victory I have prepared for you never begins where human eyes can see, nor in moments of emotional flare like sudden lightning. It begins in the foundations you consider silent, meaningless, slow, and exhausting. I know you long for visible results, long for immediate signs that you are not walking in the wrong direction, but you do not understand that every true victory begins with days that look like I am doing nothing. The nights when you sit awake with no answer, no door opened, no solution in sight. Those are not failures. They are the phase in which I am laying the groundwork for what your eyes cannot yet see. People see victory as the summit of a mountain. I see victory as the mountain range built stone by stone beneath the surface. If you look only at what is above the ground, you will think I am inactive. But if you learn to see from heaven's vantage point, you will know that every silence is the sound of my hammer shaping the foundation of your future. Just as the great tree cannot reach toward the heavens with shallow roots, you cannot carry the victory I give while your soul clings only to emotion. The roots of a mighty tree are not made to be admired, they are made to bear weight. They do not grow toward the light. They plunge into the darkness, burrowing into the earth, into the damp, silent places no one sees. You admire the trunk and its branches. I examine the roots and determine its height. I will not allow your soul to rise too quickly before the roots of faith are anchored in me, because if you rush into glory before your foundation is formed, even a small wind will sweep you away. I desire your victory not to be a moment but a legacy, not merely a celebration, but an internal stature that stands firm when the world around others collapses. That is why I let your roots grow downward in silence as the towering tree plunges deep into the earth before stretching toward the sky. You have wondered why the people I use walk through seasons where no one praises them, no one sees them, no one understands them. It is because I build their foundations in hiddenness. You see leaders when their work is finished, but you do not see the nights they sweat when nothing yet has shape. You see the victor, but you do not see the years of endurance in failure where they learn discernment. You see the testimony, but you do not see the weeping no one ever heard. I do not build victories with glittering lights. I build them with bricks of steadfastness, with quiet faith, with the choice to say yes, even when you see nothing. Every moment you choose to trust me, rather than trust your emotions, every time you remain standing while the night surrounds you, these are the moments when I lay another stone into your foundation. Like a great construction project, when you pass through deep excavation and nothing rises above the ground, you think you are moving backward, but I know you are moving forward. Those who do not understand will look at the foundation and call it waste, just as they look at the dug-up soil and conclude no progress has been made. But the architect does not care about the visible floors until the deepest layers are complete. No one builds a house by placing the roof before the pillars and base. I will not lift you into high places if your soul is not heavy enough to stand. I am digging deeper than the surface-breaking stone, removing loose soil, replacing every fragile layer with material that can bear the weight of your destiny. The time you endure is not delay, it is the depth I require. For the victory I prepare does not only concern the present, it concerns the future fractures I must reinforce before they ever appear. You think I am silent when you walk through seasons of trial, but in truth I am laying the foundation so that when victory arrives, it does not crush you. I do not want to hand you glory your soul cannot withstand, because light that is too bright burns souls that are still weak. I want you steady when the winds change, when the crowd shifts, when both applause and criticism fail to pull you away from the direction I have set. Not everyone will understand the silence I assign to you, but you must not measure your worth by the voice of the world. If they cannot see roots, they will say you are stagnant. If they cannot see structure above ground, They will say you have achieved nothing, but I do not listen to them. I look at roots, I look at foundation, I look at endurance when there is no audience. I build victory in places without spotlights, so that when the light comes, you do not tremble. The victory I write for your life is not the kind of victory that draws applause and satisfies the craving of your heart for a moment. It is the quiet victory of destiny, victory not nourished by emotion, but by deliberate arrangements. I prepared before you ever learned how to name your pain. You once believed victory came when you surpassed someone, achieved something, proved something, or compelled the world to acknowledge you. But the victory I assign does not revolve around competition. It revolves around putting you in the position that fits the larger design I drew from the beginning. Many souls chase victory according to the world's measurements, but I lead you into victory according to heaven's victory, not for recognition but for the fulfillment of my will. You imagine victory arrives when everything becomes clear, but I often hide victory in obscurity so that only those who hear my voice will recognize they have stepped into it. There are crowns not displayed under bright lights but kept quietly inside plain wooden boxes, unpolished and untouched as if no one has claimed them. You walk past them without noticing because they do not gleam like earthly glory. But I have ordained those crowns long before you had the strength to lift them, keeping them where no eye can reach so no one can steal them. The world gives crowns to those who perform. I give crowns to those who endure. The world demands public proof and evidence. I delight in hidden preparation. The crown I assign to you is not for boasting, it is for responsibility. It is not to make you visible, it is to make you unshakable. That is why I keep it in the box, waiting until your soul matures enough not to let outer light drown out my inner voice. When I open that box, you will see that every trial before was not punishment, but the training of your hands to hold gemstones. I do not wait for you to ask for the throne before I grant authority. I place jewels in your hand before you know you have been chosen. This is the mystery many do not understand. You do not request the throne, yet I place the jewels in your grasp. This is how I work with those I have appointed. They do not know they are being elevated because they are still bending beneath the weight of the lessons hidden within life. The bearer of earthly thrones seeks high seats, but the one I appoint must learn to kneel before me before they can stand on platforms. I do not lead you into the throne room as a guest. I lead you in as a keeper of secrets, one forged in silences the world calls useless. I do not want you to learn how to love power. I want you to learn how to carry it as a servant. For the throne I give does not exist to glorify you, but to glorify me through you. You do not need to plead, compete, or prove, because the throne I place is not in the marketplace, but in the destiny already decreed. In life you will encounter moments that confuse you, unexpected promotion doors, opening at a time unrelated to your accomplishments, people I place beside you who speak one sentence that changes the direction of your journey. You will think it is luck or late recognition from the world, and you will not realize it is the placement I wrote in my book before you were born. I cause one person to notice you among the crowd. I cause a recommendation to arise from where no one anticipated. I cause doors once sealed to open even though you never knocked. You will ask why you were chosen when others appear more capable, more ambitious, more prepared. But never measure destiny by human capability. My destiny does not operate by market logic or resume. It operates by my sovereignty. The doors I open do not swing because you are the most deserving in the eyes of people, but because you are the most fitting in mine. If you wait for victory to arrive through applause, you will always believe you have not achieved anything. But if you learn to see victory through the preparation I am shaping, you will know victory already began the day I laid my hand upon your life. My victory does not necessarily make you the one who stands above others. It makes you the one who stands where you belong. I do not lift you to high platforms to prove you surpass others. I place you where I need you, so that you may release those I will send after you. That is the victory of destiny, victory measured not by glory, but by obedience, not by noise, but by the endurance of purpose. The world will ask you, "What have you accomplished?" But I will ask you, "Who have you become?" The world judges winners and losers by outcomes. I distinguish them by the heart that has passed through fire and yet has not lost the holiness I planted from the beginning. The silence I place on your journey is never meant to leave you directionless, but to forge you as metal undergoing transformation in fire. Metal that lies untouched in a warehouse will always remain a useless block, easily bent, easily broken by the slightest force. But when it is placed into a forge made to endure heat and repeated strikes, it gradually becomes steel, strong, sharp, and capable of bearing weight. The silence I give you is that very fire, not to melt you, but to purge from you the impurities of fear, the expectations of the world, and the limits you once imposed on yourself. I do not want you to be soft metal that only reacts. I want you to be steel that has been tempered, able to stand firm in storms, able to discern before the words of the world, able to recognize my voice, even when I do not speak loudly. For only when your soul can endure the heat of silence will you have the strength to carry the weight of the victory I have destined for you. Spiritual maturity is not born from simple encouragement, but from trials that force you to examine the foundation beneath your feet. You once wished for me to speak loudly to comfort you, but if I did so, you would never know whether you stand on faith or on emotion. I choose silence to expose what truly governs your inner world. Are you trusting in my word, or only in the comfort you desire? I place you into stretches of silence so you may see how you respond when there is no outer support. It is within the absence of noise that you finally discover the depth of your faith, where you learn to stand not because you are strong, but because I am your ground. Consider it pure joy when you face trials of many kinds, because the testing of your faith produces perseverance, and perseverance must finish its work so that you may be perfect and complete. James 1:2-4. I do not keep silent to exhaust you. I keep silent to make you whole. I see your fear when you assume that silence means I have departed, but you are confusing the absence of speech with the absence of presence. I do not disappear simply because you cannot hear me. I only shift from speaking outwardly to inscribing inwardly. You have not yet realized that the silence I use is the same as the forging of a king's blade. No one tempers a sword in the noisy square because the hammer and sparks would warn the enemy. A blade is forged in a private chamber where there is only fire steel and the hand of the craftsman. I choose to lead you into that chamber, not because I lower you, but because I am preparing you for a place not granted to everyone. A piece of steel that has never been heated can look beautiful, but it will snap in battle. A soul that has never passed through silence can appear passionate, but will crumble at the first gust of opposition. I have carried you through seasons in which everything within you wanted to run, to seek voices, to seek solutions, to seek affirmation. But I kept you within silence so you could see what you rely upon: praise, recognition, the illusion of safety, or my name. I want you to stand in my name, not in fear. The garment of the chosen is not woven from anxiety, but from authority. You cannot wear that garment if your core still trembles every time I stop speaking. I need you to stand without shaking, to recognize me, even when things are blurred, and to continue moving forward, even when no instruction has been written in front of you. Only when you know how to stand like this will you be able to lead those I will send beneath your shade, because they will need strength from a soul that has walked through fire without being destroyed. The silence I give is a trial, but also a testimony. It proves that I value you enough not to keep you in an infant state. I do not train you to see if you are worthy. I train you because I know you will need endurance to carry what I have appointed. If you only know how to triumph in ease, you will lose that triumph when waves come beneath the surface. If you only know how to stand when everything is clear, you will collapse in the decisions I require you to walk by faith. That is why I let silence cover you, not to punish, not to abandon, but to make you into a blade I can trust, sharp, steady, and unmoved by any faint wind of the world. The void in front of you is not peace. It is a memory of places that once caused you harm. When your spiritual life was still young, you learned that people care only when they speak, when they touch, when they look at you with affirmation. But silence, absence, delay, all of these were signals that you were not important enough to be kept. Your soul built a reflex. Whenever you face an unanswered space, you rush to fill it with the worst possible conclusions, because the past taught you that quiet was rejection unsaid. I see you carrying that reflex into your relationship with me, and I do not blame you for it, because I know that the deepest wounds do not rest in the places struck, but in the places left behind. That is why when I am silent, you do not feel my peace. You mistake me for those who turned their backs on you. Your soul once had to protect itself by predicting pain, believing that if you imagine the worst first, you will hurt less when it arrives. But this defense has taught you to equate waiting with abandonment, silence with indifference, delay with forgetting. You begin to believe that without an immediate response you have no worth, that if no one pulls you back you will fall, that if there is no explanation you must blame yourself. I know your soul had to survive in a world where affection always came with conditions, where care was withdrawn, when you failed to meet expectations, where love was taken from you, not because you did wrong, but because their hearts grew tired. You were taught that love is something that can be taken away, so you fear the void because the void always preceded loss. But my love is unlike anything you have known. I do not withdraw from you when you are not enough, nor do I keep silent to punish you for weakness. The silence I give is not a closed door, but a waiting room, where your soul slows its heartbeat and sees itself more clearly. I see you grow restless every time I withdraw my sound from your life, as if I have shut the door and left you outside. But you do not know that I have set a chair in that room for you to sit, placed a gentle light, so you may examine your heart, not through the eyes of human judgment, but through mine. You think I have left, but I stand just behind the quiet, waiting for you to stop flinching from the past that has scorched your trust. You fear silence because you were once left in it by those who no longer needed you. I place you in silence because I want you to become who I ordained you to be. I have witnessed countless souls flee from silence, as if fleeing from an abyss, but they never realize that the abyss of the soul is not the place I throw them into, but the place I pull them from to save them from noise. You think the void will swallow you, but it only devours the false voices you once believed were true. I want you to confront emptiness, not so you remember every rejection, but so you see that you survived them and you are no longer defined by them. I do not fill the void with flattery or quick miracles, for such things soothe the soul for a moment, but enslave it for a lifetime. I allow the void to remain, so you may know that your worth does not depend on the presence of other voices, but on the fact that I chose you long before you knew your own name. You still have not recognized a gentle truth. Emptiness is not absence, it is a space for selection. In the empty space, you no longer hear the noise of fear, nor the accusations of memory. You only hear the smallest movements within your own heart. It is there that I begin to speak to you in a way you have never heard before, not through intense emotions, not through loud reassurance, but through a deep certainty that makes you know I am here even when I say nothing. When you fear the empty space, it is because you see it through memory. When you learn to love the empty space, it is because you see it through truth. And the truth is this: I never place you in emptiness to lose you. I bring you into emptiness to return you to yourself. You have grown accustomed to measuring love through reaction and to confirming your worth through sound. So when I do not speak, you immediately conclude that my silence means departure. Yet there are times when I intentionally withdraw heaven's sound from your ears, so that the voices buried deep within you may surface: the voice of fear that once governed you, the voice of memory that made you tremble, the voice of doubt that whispered you were not enough, the voice of past wounds that told you anyone who grows silent toward you will eventually abandon you. If I spoke immediately, you would never distinguish between the true voice and the false one, between my voice and the voice of darkness that imitated me through your unhealed wounds. You do not yet know that my silence is not evidence that I am inactive. It is the time I use to separate the noise inside you from my voice, so that when I speak again, you will know it is the true voice, not the echo of emotion. Each time I am silent, I shine light into the corners of your heart you usually avoid. You hear the echoes of the years you were wounded and assume I am speaking, but the pain of the past is not my voice. You hear the urgency to move quickly, to choose immediately, to run without delay, but urgency never bears my signature. You hear condemnation when you feel weak, yet condemnation never comes from me. I remain silent so those voices reveal themselves, so you do not confuse them with the voice of heaven. If I spoke while your soul was in panic, you would blend my sound with the sound of fear, and the two would become a mixture that leaves you unable to discern which is truth. So I pause, waiting for every internal noise to settle like a potter, waiting for the clay to stop trembling before touching it, so the lines drawn upon it will not be warped by the shaking of the soul. I also let you experience that space, so you may learn the nature of false voices. False voices are always loud, impatient, urging you to choose now, decide now, fear now. They carry urgency that makes your heart race, as if something will collapse if you do not react immediately. False voices press on your emotions, your memories, and the wounds you have not surrendered to me. They dress themselves in importance, yet their purpose is always to pull you away from the direction I set. But my voice is different. My voice does not pressure, does not incite panic, does not demand proof, does not challenge your worth. My voice is always gentle yet clear, few yet deep, quiet yet powerful. And only in my silence can you distinguish between the two kinds of sound, for if I spoke continually, you would never know from which direction you are being pulled. I want you to be mature, and maturity begins with recognizing the true voice your soul must follow. You have often asked me, Father, why do you not answer? But in truth, you are standing in the courtyard of discernment. I do not speak so you may learn how to hear. I do not appear so you may learn how to recognize. I do not step in immediately so you may learn to trace my footsteps among 1,000 forged trails. You do not yet understand that most of darkness's deception does not arrive with loud words, but with whispers that resemble mine, differing only in one thing: they carry no peace. This is why I must train you to discern not merely by the words I speak, but by the silence I place. When I withdraw sound, you begin to hear the voices that already existed within you, but were drowned by your demand for my reply. When they surface, you will see clearly which voice arises from your wounds, which arises from fear, which arises from illusion, and which carries my breath in every cadence. I do this not to confuse you, but to strengthen you. A mature soul does not determine direction by noise, but by its alignment with truth. The one who knows the difference between true voices and false ones will not fall into the traps of sudden emotion, will not be pulled by flattery, will not be crushed by criticism, and will not be led astray by spiritual-sounding invitations that bear no mark of me. I want you to become the kind of person who can stand amid 20 competing voices and still recognize mine, even if it arrives as a whisper. The kind who can walk into the night without panic, simply because they cannot hear me. The kind who knows that sound does not determine presence, and silence does not determine love. When you learn this, no false voice will have the power to pull you away from the path I have assigned. You have been trained to see silence as an enemy, as a wall between you and what you desire. So instead of entering silence and allowing it to open within your soul, you use all your strength to break it. You speak more, plead louder, pray harder, think faster, and the more you try, the more exhausted you become. You assume that if you make enough noise, I must respond. If you remain restless long enough, I must deem you worthy. If you ask enough questions, I must be forced to answer. But I am not a father who appears only when you make noise. I am the one who teaches you how to stand firm in stillness. Silence does not wound you. You wound yourself by resisting it. The space of quiet I create is like the space of breath. If you hold your breath and pound on doors for air, you suffocate, but if you breathe within that space, you live. Silence does not strangle you, your fear does. You believe breaking silence means regaining control, yet every time you fight against it, you are handing power to the insecurity within you. You force your soul to live in a state of alertness, always preparing to defend, always expecting a sudden sign to break the stillness, like a person in front of a glass door who strikes it repeatedly in hopes of seeing inside. But the more they strike, the less they see. I am not hiding you behind a barrier. I simply let you stand still long enough for your eyes to adjust to the light. When you speak too much, you cannot hear. When you ask too urgently, you cannot recognize the answers arriving through subtle movements of life. I do not speak through the noise you create, because that noise does not come from me but from the fear pulling the strings of your heart like an invisible hand. When you try to break silence by your own strength, you turn yourself into a victim of emotion. You run to people for validation, ask them what you should do, hope they can explain. Me, hope they can give you the reassurance I have not yet given. You listen to the opinions of 10 voices, yet cannot hear the whisper in your own soul. You treat the absence of sound as a void that must be filled by activity instead of a space where the soul is restored. I do not need you to run for me to speak. I need you to stop so I can touch you. You are exhausted not because the trials are heavy, but because you refuse to let your heart sit down like someone carrying both hands full of stones who believes they must throw them to make noise, unaware that the stones were meant to be set down, not hurled. You do not realize that the silence I give is a seat, while you keep mistaking it for a wall. What drains you is not the challenge, but resistance. A soul that knows how to enter silence will be healed in it. A soul that tries to break silence will shatter itself. Silence is like a still surface of water where the horizon is reflected most clearly. If you stir it, the reflection disappears. You feel restless not because I have not answered, but because you create storms in the place where I have already stilled the wind. I want you to step into silence as you would into a room with gentle light, where you do not need to shout to be heard, do not need to control to see. You simply need to stand still, and every contour will appear before the eyes of your soul. You are just beginning to learn how to listen to me, yet you rush back to the voices of the world because they are more familiar than the silence I set around you. You forget that nothing from me ever demands urgency. Only what is counterfeit forces you to react at once. If you would learn to walk into silence, you would see that it is not emptiness, but the foundation of every answer. I do not forge you through noise, I forge you through space. My silence is not a place where I am absent, but a place where I am closest, for only there will nothing be large enough to hide me from your sight. When you choose to come in, you will no longer have to break silence, because silence itself will open you. The fear of silence will become understanding, anxiety will become awareness, and instead of trying to make me hear you, you will learn how to hear me. You will find rest, not because every question is resolved, but because you no longer need answers in order to keep walking. There are seasons when you seek me with your eyes longing for clear signs, recognizable miracles, undeniable answers. You want me to be like a road with signposts, go straight, turn left, wait here, stop there. But I am not a map. I am the one who holds the universe, and the souls I love are not led by sight but by communion. I hide my face not to disappoint you, but so your heart will learn to walk instead of your eyes dragging you forward. I do not want your journey to be the journey of one who believes only when they see. I want your life to be the life of one who sees because they have believed. If you demand to see my face, you will only know me as a giver of answers. But if you seek my heart, you will know me as the one who walks beside you in every breath. I know the cries that rise within you, Father. Why won't you tell me? Why won't you make it clear? Why must I guess? You think I am silent, so you must handle everything yourself, but I am silent, so you will understand that I do not want you to live on my words like a formula, but to live in communion with me as life itself. You do not yet realize that if I answered every question, you would not need to trust. If I opened every door instantly, you would not need patience. If I revealed the entire plan, you would never need to listen. I hide my face not because I am distant, but because I want you to know that your eyes are not the strongest sense of the soul. They are merely the most easily deceived. You need your heart to recognize me, for the heart is the place where I never hide. You used to rely on sight to measure my presence, seeing miracles, seeing responses, seeing changes, seeing others being built up. But I do not want you to lean on what others see. I want you to lean on what I am doing in you. When I hide my face, you can no longer chase emotion, nor cling to external confirmation. You must listen in the depths where your soul used to tremble because it was too accustomed to living on noise. It is there that I begin to lay out what your eyes could never notice: resilience, steadiness, discernment, and spiritual intuition, things only those who pursue my heart possess. The one who lives by miracles survives only until miracles stop. The one who lives by my heart stands firm even before the miracle arrives. I also know the fear that rises when there are no more signs. You feel abandoned. You believe silence is rejection. You forget that some who love you are silent so you can grow. I do not want your soul to remain a child clinging to the Father only when you hear comforting words. I want you to become spiritually mature, one who does not need daily reassurance because they carry my heartbeat in their own. That is why I hide my face. I do not remove my presence. I remove the crutch you are clinging to. I do not deprive you of me. I deprive you of substitutes for me. You see less so that you may feel more. You hear less so that you may discern deeper. You know less so that you may depend on me more truly. I am still there when you think I am far. I am still beside you when you think I have stopped moving. I am still placing my hand upon your path when no heavenly light seems to shine. If I constantly revealed my face, you would walk toward the light, but I want you to walk toward me. Light can be misread. My face can be mistaken for emotion, but my heart cannot be forged. When you pursue my heart, you will see what eyes have never seen: wholeness in trial, peace in storms, strength in solitude, wonder in seasons that seem meaningless. I do not want you to be someone who believes only when you see. I want you to be one whom darkness fears because you know me, even when there is nothing left to see. You have lived in a world where human voices run ahead of the truth of the soul. You chase compliments to feel valuable, chase attention to feel acknowledged, chase approval to believe you exist. When they praise you, you feel useful. When they oppose you, you sink into fear. When they fall silent, you punish yourself. I have watched you do this. A soul convinced that noise is a measure, that emotion is truth, that reaction is life. But you do not realize that these things are only passing winds, never strong enough to become a foundation. I am silent not to abandon you, but to sever you from the addiction. I am silent so the soul that once depended on external responses will turn back to the only place where true value is found in me. Not every earthly voice is malicious. but no earthly voice belongs to eternity. Sometimes they appear as advice or encouragement, but in truth they push you into the expectations of people. Sometimes they awaken you, yet they pull you away from the quiet needed to hear me. Sometimes they promise, predict, or invite, but they do not see the whole landscape as I do. I am silent because I do not want you to keep running toward voices that stir your heart into chaos, that place your hope into the hands of those too fragile to hold your soul. I have watched many of my children become prey to noise voices of flattery that made them arrogant, voices of criticism that crushed them, voices of comparison that made them forget the holy identity I placed in them from the beginning. I know the noise of the world can kill faith faster than any wound, because it makes you forget to ask me. You do not realize that the voices of the world never stop shifting. One day they applaud, the next they throw stones. In one season they praise you, in another they go silent. When you succeed, they call your name. When you stumble, they act as though you never existed. You think you are listening to truth, but you are only hearing the echo of human hearts, hearts ruled by emotion, self-interest, and short-sighted perspectives. I know that the more you listen to them, the further you drift from me. So I remain silent, so that you may see that my silence does not push you out. It pulls you away from places that would swallow your soul if you stayed there too long. I am silent so that your addiction to the voices of the world may be exposed, so that you no longer lean on them and forget me, so that you stop and finally ask a question you have never asked deeply enough: which voice is the world's and which voice is my Father's? You do not see that most of the voices pulling you along are there to exhaust you, not because they are evil in themselves, but because they were never written for your life. The scripts others project onto you will always require you to change yourself to fit them, but the map I designed for you never demands that you resemble anyone else. I am silent so you can begin to detach from that inertia, so you stop living as who you think you should become and begin living as who I created you to be. When you do not hear my answer, you start turning inward and discovering territories you have never faced: the fear of being left behind, the hunger to be recognized, the longing to be understood, the terror of being alone. I do not fix these things with a single word. I allow them to rise before your eyes in the silence. I know that only when you see their roots can you truly decide: will you keep running after the world's voice, or will you step deeper into me? If you keep chasing the voices of the world, you will live by their rhythm, and that rhythm will never be enough to place you inside my destiny. The world will push you forward when I want you to stand still. It will call you back when I want you to move. It will lift you to places I never called you to. It will pull you down when I am trying to raise you up. You will be dragged, scattered, and worn out by a current that does not understand you were born to go against it. I am silent so that you can step out of that current, so you can learn that silence is not an empty void but a harbor for your soul. Only when you stand in my silence can you distinguish which path belongs to me and which is merely the world calling you by the wrong name. When you grasp this, you will see that silence is no longer as frightening as it once was. It is not a dark, forgotten corner, but a space where I shield your ears from voices that do not carry life. In the silence I create, you will learn to recognize me, not by sound, but by presence, not by answers, but by inner certainty, not by human confirmation, but by the steady rhythm of peace I place in your heart. And one day, when you have become familiar with this silence, you will realize I did not remain silent to punish you. I remained silent to save you from voices that could kill the future I have written for you. You have grown used to living by what your emotions bring. When your heart is excited, you believe I am near. When fear closes in, you assume I have abandoned you. When things go smoothly, you think I am working. When everything feels stuck, you conclude I have turned my face away. Emotion has become the thermometer of your faith, and every small shift in your circumstances makes you rush to measure how present you think I am. I do not condemn you for this immaturity, but I know that if you keep letting emotion lead, you will never distinguish my true light from imitations. Emotion is like the tide, it rises, not because you are doing well, and it falls not because you are wrong. Often it is simply the reaction of your body, your memories, your fatigue, your unhealed places. I withdraw my spoken word not to leave you empty, but to force you to see the markers I have placed along the way instead of searching for a sound to soothe your soul. You do not realize that I have always been speaking, you simply have not learned how to listen. I speak through the stillness of a closed door, through the sharp clarity that reveals a relationship has turned toxic, through the strange peace that descends when you release what you once believed was the only thing holding you up. I speak through the loss of desire for dreams that did not come from me, through the rest you feel when you stop, through the heaviness you sense when you walk in the wrong direction. But instead of reading these signs, you listen to your emotions and mistake them for me. You say, if my heart is moved, it must be his voice. If I feel light, he must approve. If everything is smooth, I must be on the right path. Yet your heart is not a compass when it has not been aligned by me. It is only a mirror reflecting the landscape of your past. Emotion can be rooted in wounds, in fear, in instant desire, in illusions of hope. I withdraw my word so that you no longer depend on that restless sea, but learn to look at the sky I have arranged. The signs I use are never loud flashes that dazzle your eyes, but small stones laid along the road, precisely placed, perfectly timed, deeply anchored. You find yourself meeting someone for no apparent reason, and they speak exactly what you need to hear. You unexpectedly walk through a door you thought had been closed for years. You wake with a peace you cannot explain. You are forced to pause because you no longer have the strength to keep running. You label these things as coincidence, but I call them orchestration. Emotion may tell you they are random, but randomness does not repeat itself in the precise patterns I have set. Emotion will make you overlook these quiet signs, yet I deliberately place them in silence so that you must learn to see, not just to hear. For those who are mature in me do not walk by their ears. They walk by spiritual sight, seeing me in the movements. Few notice recognizing me in small events that are nonetheless powerful enough to alter the course of a life. If I did not withdraw my word, you would never discover my subtlety. You would be like those who only know me in the thunder and miss me in the gentle breeze. You would grow accustomed to direct answers and forget that the plans I have for you sometimes require paths without visible signposts. I want you to become sensitive to what others dismiss as insignificant. The way someone's gaze toward you suddenly changes the corridor of opportunity that opens and then closes a seemingly ordinary encounter that quietly shifts the prinding direction of your entire week. When I withdraw my word, I compel your soul to shift its weight from emotion to sign, from reaction to discernment, from immediacy to patience. For the victory I intend for you is not the victory of those who chase feelings, but the victory of those who pursue truth. You cannot step into my destiny while chasing every fleeting tremor of your heart. A heart not yet formed by me will tremble for anyone who touches it. A mind that has not learned discernment will open its doors to any voice that shouts loud enough. I withdraw my word to bring you into stillness, to a place where you no longer hear cheers or criticism, where only the hidden arrangements I am making remain. There you will learn to see not with natural sight, but with the light I have placed within your soul, to see not through fear, but through peace, not through what is unstable, but through what is unshakable. And when you learn to read my signs rather than your emotions, you will realize that I have never stood on the opposite side of you. I have always been the one leading you forward. You simply needed to stop long enough to see where I place my feet. My silence is not an empty void, not a barren space where your soul wanders lost. but a gravitational pull that gathers every scattered stream of energy within you into a single point. When you live in the noise of the world, your mind flies in every direction, one part chasing expectations, another fleeing fear, another clinging to memories, another busy calculating the future. You think you are functioning, advancing, fighting, but in truth, you are being split apart from within. The silence I give does not come to immobilize you, but to draw your soul back to its true axis. I know that a fragmented soul cannot hear me, cannot discern, cannot stand firm, but a soul gathered into one point can pierce the fog that terrifies the immature. I use silence the way a blacksmith places metal in the furnace, not to let it fall freely, but to heat it precisely from its center. When I pull all emotional movement back toward the center, the first thing you experience is discomfort. You are used to a mind that must run, a heart that must react, a soul that must push its energy outward in order to feel alive. That is why, when I gather those parts together, you think you are being suffocated. It is not because I am shrinking you, but because you have lived too long in dispersion. A light wind makes you shake, a misunderstanding look makes you second-guess yourself, an offhand remark forces you to brace for battle. The silence I give comes to strip away those reflexes, to show you that you no longer need to manage every slight disturbance. I do not gather your soul to confine it, but to place it in a state where every thought, every emotion, every desire must pass through one single center, me. There are seasons when I withdraw my voice, not because you are unworthy, but because your heart must learn the difference between inner movement and heaven's calling. When all outer sounds disappear, you begin to see yourself more clearly. You recognize desires that are not mine, ambitions fed by fear, aspirations that appear holy, but exist only to fill the emptiness inside. My silence is like a light shining downward on a fixed point, not to expose you to the world, but so you can see every wrinkle and fracture in your soul, not through the mirror of others' judgment, but through the direct light that comes from me. Those who live by the voices of the world will run from such silence because it forces them to see themselves. But those who live for me will know it is an invitation I have placed for them to realign the axis within. Spiritual focus is not achieved by gritting your teeth and exerting effort. It is achieved by releasing what scatters you. When you step into silence, you no longer have the energy to chase many things at once. No reason to run after the voices of people. No reason to prove anything to anyone. I leave only what belongs to your essence in me. Two hands untethered from control, a heart wide enough to receive me, and a soul no longer torn apart by scenarios you create. In that place, I begin to impart to you the capacity for spiritual focus. Not focus on problems, but focus on presence. A soul that has spiritual focus does not need to know which of 100 doors ahead are closed or open. It only needs to look toward the direction where I place the light and walk. You once believed spiritual focus was achieved by gritting through difficulty, by forcing yourself to see, forcing yourself to hear, forcing yourself to chase after signs. But spiritual focus is, in truth, the surrender to a principle: everything that does not gather toward me will fracture you. I use silence like a rope that pulls your soul back to where it belongs, as a boatman pulls on the line to keep from being swept away by the river. If I spoke constantly, you would never learn to hold your axis. If I sent signs endlessly, you would never value the act of listening. If I comforted your emotions every time they trembled, you would never learn discernment. If I corrected your path the moment you stepped aside, you would never understand what it means to return. I am silent so that you may know one point is enough. That point is me. And only when your soul gathers into one center will you walk as one who knows the path, not as one searching for light amid chaos. There are seasons when you come to me with prayers that you believe are righteous, holy, and aligned with heaven, yet they are only the thirst of an unhealed soul. You ask me to open a door not because you are ready, but because you are afraid to remain where you stand. You ask me for love not because you desire to love, but because you fear not being chosen. You ask me for glory not to serve, but so the world will no longer look down on you. I do not rebuke you for such prayers. I simply know they are not born from the deepest places within you, where I placed purpose and identity, and so I choose silence. I do not remain silent to make you think your prayer has no value. I remain silent to separate you from the motivations that distort it. Requests born from wounds are not wrong because you are wicked, but because you do not yet realize you are asking from injury rather than destiny. The silence I place over you is pure water, not a raging waterfall, but a steady, patient stream that washes away the meanings you unconsciously attach to outcomes. When you receive no answer, you begin to ask, why do I want this? Do I want it for you or for fear? Do I want it to serve or to prove something? Do I want it to build or to fill a void? These questions never appear when I respond quickly. They arise only when you stand before the silent door and must face the origin of your desire. I love silence, not because I am mysterious, but because silence forces your soul to confront itself. A prayer may be beautiful when written, honorable when spoken aloud, but the motives beneath it are what I examine. I never grant anything that will pull your soul away from me faster than it draws you near. I have seen too many souls ask for exaltation while carrying resentment from being overlooked. Ask for love without knowing how to love. Ask for authority only to control. Ask for open doors only to prove something to those who walked away. I hear such prayers I do not condemn. I simply do not respond. Because if I respond, you will believe that I validate your wound, when all I intend is to heal it. I am silent so that you may discover which voice inside you is speaking, the mind, the memory, the emotion, or the voice I planted in your soul. You ask me to lead you higher, but I do not want you to carry into heights the very things that would destroy you. You ask me for relationships, but I will not send you into them with a heart that does not yet understand love. You ask me to open doors, but I will not let you walk through them as a refugee seeking safety. I want you to walk through them as one who has been sent. There are prayers that are not wrong in their purpose, but are out of place in their timing. It is not that I do not want to give you great things. It is that I will not give them before your soul is pure enough to hold them without harming yourself or others. I know you will say, but I am ready. I remain silent so you can discover the layers you have not yet seen. The layer of motive, the layer of desire, the layer of meaning. I am silent so you may learn that waiting is not a barrier, but a hallway where you remove the coverings you thought were protecting you, but were really binding you. Impure motives turn blessing into chains. Misaligned desires turn answered prayers into burdens. I constrain you to listen to my silence, because in silence, whatever does not truly belong to you will fall off by itself. You do not need me to strip it away. You only need me not to grant it. Silence is both a test and a cleansing. You think you are asking for something beautiful, but when I am silent, you begin to see that you are simply asking for protection from shame. You think you are asking for a door into the future, but I am silent so you can see that you are only running from your past. You think you are asking for support, but I am silent so you can see that you are reaching for a crutch instead of learning how to stand. I do not want you to step into your life with trembling hands. I want you to step into it with hands that know how to receive. I do not want you to live in the loop of prayers that only put out fires for a moment. I want you to ask for what I have ordained, the thing that will make you become truly yourself, not a patched-together version designed to please people. When I wash your motives, I am laying the foundation for an answer far greater than you imagined, an answer that will not weigh you down but set you free. The silence I lay over you is not meant to turn you into someone standing outside heaven's office door shaking, while you wait for an approval that might be withdrawn at any moment. I am silent to break a habit that has sunk deep into your soul, the habit of coming to me as a beggar, as someone standing at the threshold asking for leftovers, as one who is always afraid of being rejected for asking too much, too often, or for too long. I do not want you to come to me with the posture of someone running from lack, but with the posture of someone stepping into what they already belong to. An heir does not need to snatch, does not need to plead, does not need to prove themselves worthy. The heir simply receives because they know it is their right. I am silent, so you may shift from a mindset of begging to a mindset of inheritance, from the posture of a victim to the posture of a child, from the position of one searching for life to the position of one entrusted with life. A soul that does not yet know it is a child always prays as if trying to persuade me to change my mind. You ask as though I were a judge, not a father. You wait as though I were a temporary employer, not the one who wrote your name into the family line before you existed. I did not create you to live on pity. I created you to live on inheritance. An heir can stand in a silent room without panic because they know silence is not a closed door, but a space of preparation. A beggar trembles, believing everything depends on the generosity of the listener. An heir is at peace, knowing everything depends on the nature of the relationship. I want you to learn how to step into silence, not to be granted favors, but to receive what already belongs to you. I do not need you to be good enough for me to love you. I loved you before you knew the difference between good and evil. You have often come to me with a trembling heart. Please do not leave me. Please do not forget me. Please do not take back what you promised. That is not the voice of an heir. That is the voice of a soul that was once rejected by people and has carried that fear into heaven. I do not condemn you because I see how deeply those memories still live in your bones. But I cannot let you step into the destiny of an heir while you still believe you are a beggar. I must teach you through silence because gentle words alone are not strong enough to break the old script off you. When I am silent, every fragile place in you begins to surface the pleas, born of fear of loss, the questions born of fear of abandonment, the plans born of fear of failure. I allow them to appear so that you may recognize that you have been coming to me, not out of identity, but out of injury. An heir comes in trust. The wounded come in desperation. I want you to come as the first, not the second. When I am silent, I want you to remember that inheritance does not rest on emotion. A mother does not love her child less when it sleeps. A father does not withdraw his lineage because the child is quiet. In the same way, I do not rewrite your story just because you do not hear me. The beggar thinks silence is distance. The heir knows silence is an invitation to the table. The beggar keeps asking, "What must I do to be given something?" But the heir asks, "Father, how do you want me to use what you are giving?" My silence is meant to move your soul from the first question to the second. I do not want you merely to receive blessing. I want you to carry it. Beggars think only of themselves. They need rescue. They need safety. Heirs think of the kingdom of assignment of responsibility. I am silent, so you will lift your head, step out of the position of one who waits to be allowed, and step into the position of one who has been entrusted. I know you fear silence because you mistake it for abandonment, but in truth, silence is the throne I set before you, solid, heavy, and unlike the wooden chair I once gave you when you were small. That throne is not for the trembling, it is for the one who knows they belong. I do not want you to know only how to sit in comfort. I want you to know how to sit in authority. I do not lead you into silence to see how long you can endure it. I lead you into silence to see whether you will stand in the right place. An heir does not need feelings to confirm belonging. An heir knows that blood has signed their name over the inheritance. I want you to see silence as proof that I consider you mature enough to receive, not proof that I have gone away. I am not silent so you will beg for scraps. I am silent so you will remember that My kingdom is not handed to those who grovel in fear, but to the child who can lift their head because they know they have been chosen. Before victory appears in the world, you can see, touch, and measure. I have already sown victory into your soul. I do not build victory from the outside in. I always build from the inside out. People see victory as a result, a job, an open door, a successful relationship, a compliment, a position. But I do not work that way. I do not need favorable circumstances for victory to take shape. I only need a soul rightly positioned. The true victor is not the one who sees the light first, but the one who carries light before dawn. You are waiting for me to do something great in your life, while I am waiting for you to become a vessel wide enough not to lose what I place within you. I plant victory in your spirit like a seed hidden in the ground, so that by the time it emerges, its roots are already deeper than the winds you are about to face. Many souls ask me to change their circumstances as a condition for believing that I am at work, but I change the soul first and then the circumstances. Circumstances are only a mirror of the inner world. If your soul is fragmented, you will see chaos. If your soul is strong, you will see pathways. You want me to open doors, yet you do not know how to carry yourself as you walk through them. You want me to rescue you, yet you have not learned how to stand in authority. You want me to refine what is good, yet you have not learned to release what is old. I will not lead you into a victory under whose weight your soul would collapse. I lay the foundation of victory within you first, not because I am slow, but because I am wise. Victory is not a gift for you to use. Victory is an environment for you to live in. I am preparing the soul, not the scenery. You once believed you only needed answers. When, why, where, how. But I am teaching you a law that only the soil understands. When a seed has lain in darkness long enough, victory does not come from knowing the timing, but from becoming the person who belongs to that timing. If I reveal victory too early, you will use it to cover your fear. If I reveal it too grandly, you will forget that its source is not yourself. If I reveal it in the way you desire, you will mistake it as the reward of your effort rather than the fruit of surrender. I want you strong at the root. Strong not because circumstances are favorable, but because I have placed within you a steadfastness no circumstance can shake. Only when your soul stands firm in the victory that has not yet appeared can you walk in the victory that has already been formed. The immature wait for victory to appear before they believe they are winning. But those who are mature in me know that victory is a state, not an event. They do not wait for doors to open to step upward. They know they were chosen before the doors ever existed. They do not wait for others to validate their worth. They have already received their worth from the place where I called their name. They do not require circumstances to be pleasant before they rest. Rest is the armor they wear while they still stand in a night without stars. I dig through the layers of soil within you that have not been pressed together. I uproot the bitter roots. I wash away the voices that taught you to interpret silence as failure. You say that I am silent, but I say that I am sowing. You say that I am slow, but I say that I am building. Victory does not begin the moment the door opens. Victory begins the moment you can stand before that door without fear. I place victory in your spirit, so that when I place it in your circumstances, you no longer see it through the eyes of someone who needs to be rescued, but through the eyes of someone entrusted. A child, when seeing a gift, fears losing it. An heir, when seeing an inheritance, begins to steward it. I do not want you to live in victory as someone frightened of being stripped. I want you to live in victory as someone positioned for responsibility. Those who receive victory through emotion collapse when emotion changes. Those who receive victory through identity stand firm even when the wind shifts. I place completeness within you before I place success around you, so that you never mistake victory for a means of earning love. You were loved long before the victory was revealed. There are victories you ask me for, the ones you pray over day and night, demand from the depths of your soul, begging me to bend circumstances in the way you believe is good. But there are also victories you never named, victories that never appeared in your imagination, because they do not grow from desire or fear, but from the divine intention I set before you knew how to breathe. These victories do not arrive to satisfy your soul, they arrive to unveil my purpose. You ask me for victory in the small races you can see in front of you. I lead you into races you never believed you had the right to step onto. You ask me for rescue in a short season. I take you into a journey that transforms an entire life. You ask me to move against those who are hurting you. I move against the identity within you so that you are no longer hurt by them. The victories you never asked for are the victories I write for those I love, not for those who live only by immediate need. You once thought victory was when I agreed with your desire, but I am a father, not a manufacturer of human wants. I do not come to sign off on everything you ask. I come to present what you are mature enough to carry. Sometimes I am silent, not because your requests are wrong, but because your requests are too small. Your soul is exhausted from asking to escape a closed door, while I desire to give you the entire building behind that door. You ask to surpass a person, while I desire to give you authority over the very thing that made that person stronger than you. You ask for a simple, peaceful life, while I want to place you on the heights to make a way for many souls. The victories I choose always stretch beyond the borders of your perspective, because I do not only see the present you are living, I see the generations that will find strength from your journey. I know you have wondered why I did not answer your most desperate prayers. You believed I did not care, but I was protecting you from a false victory. There are victories that look like light but are nothing more than the flicker of desire. There are victories that bring satisfaction but are only revenge dressed in spiritual fabric. There are victories that make you right before others, yet imprison your soul within boundaries the enemy prepared. I will not grant victories that push you into arrogance, that make you dependent on comparison, that enslave you to praise, that force you to live by proving yourself. I do not construct victories so the world will call you strong. I construct victories so heaven recognizes the one I have marked. The victories you never asked for do not arrive with explosions, for I do not need to announce myself. They are like doors that open quietly, seen only by those who belong to them. You may walk into an ordinary day, think it is only a meeting, a sentence, a small decision, yet I have placed within it a turning point. You think you are taking a random turn, but I am lifting you from the low places into the high ones. Not because you are skilled, not because you are prepared, but because you have listened to me long enough that your heart no longer fears silence. You ask me for what is predictable. I give what cannot be predicted. The one who relies on their own strength seeks victories they can explain. The one who relies on me receives victories that bring them to their knees in worship. I do not choose victories based on what you think you need, but based on what I know you were created to carry. You ask me for a handful of soil to survive, but I want to give you seeds to cultivate an entire harvest. You ask for opportunities to see my goodness, but I want to make you a living testimony of that goodness before many people. You ask me for a life peaceful enough to avoid pain, but I want to give you a life great enough to turn pain into power. You ask me for victory to protect your heart, but I give victory to open your heart to those I place around you. The victories you never asked for do not live in the realm of safety guarantees. They live in the realm only those who know me as Father dare to enter. You do not yet know that some failures do not exist in events but in the rhythm of the soul. You do not lose because you are weak. You lose because your soul keeps running along the same worn path formed by fear, memory, pain, and the false teachings of the world. The cycle of defeat is not a single fall. It is a habit of the heart. When abandoned, you cling. When wounded, you try to control. When directionless, you chase the voices of others. When peace is lost, you change course in haste. These reactions do not spring from faith, but from survival instincts. And the enemy has never needed strength to bring you down. It only needs to make you repeat yourself. I use silence as a surgeon's scalpel. I do not cut the symptoms, I cut the roots. When I am silent, you no longer have a place to run for comfort. When I am silent, your soul must face itself rather than flee back to the cycles that once offered false safety. In the seasons when I do not respond, you feel lost and assume I have left you alone in the desert. Yet that very silence is the fence I build so you will not turn back to the path you once knew. If I were to speak too soon, you would take my answer and use it to reinforce the old system you would use. My promise to legitimize your fear, use my assurance to continue leaning on people use, my signs to bypass the lesson of discernment. I cannot allow the truth I give to become fuel for the wrong cycle. So I am silent. I am not silent to push you into darkness. I am silent to force your eyes away from the road you are used to walking. When my voice is no longer heard, you begin to realize that you had been acting not because you believed you were chosen, but because you feared losing. You had been loving not because you were called to love, but because you were afraid of being alone. You had been praying not to step into purpose, but to escape failure. The cycle of failure is not broken by willpower. It is broken by forgetting the voices that once drove you in the wrong direction. I use silence to drain those voices of their energy within your soul. You will try to find responses from people, but no one will answer you the way they used to. You will try to cling to old words of comfort, but they will no longer have effect. You will wait for me to open a way, as in former seasons, yet I do not open it. It is not because I have withdrawn my hand. It is because I am shattering the old rhythm by refusing to participate in it. I know you must learn to live without the crutches that once caused you to fall. I see the seasons where you only wanted to get it over with quickly while I wanted your soul to grow. The cycle survives only when you keep answering its call. I am silent so that reaction can dry up and lose its soil in your heart. You think silence is a sign of defeat, but to me, it is the first sound of victory. For only in silence do the old obsessions rise clearly into view. The people who left you the opportunities that collapsed the doors that slammed shut in your face. When those memories surface, you find yourself at a crossroads, either return to familiar territory to search for safety, or let me sever those ties through stillness. I know that moment is frightening because in silence there is nowhere left to hide. Yet it is precisely in silence that the cycle loses its power. You will find yourself no longer rushing into frantic action, no longer striving to please, no longer reshaping yourself just to be kept. You begin to stand still. And when your soul stands still, the cycle finds no anchor. I use silence to ensure that old habits can no longer find a grip on you. I do not break the cycle with more words. I break it with the absence of words. You do not need to hear again what I have already said many times. You need to let what I have spoken take root. A seed does not grow because the farmer keeps talking to it. It grows because its roots sink into the dark soil. I am silent, so your roots will go down, instead of constantly stretching upward, searching for leaves. My silences are not non-answers. They are the moments in which I allow the lessons you have heard to become living substance within you. When the old cycle tries to pull you back, it will find a soul that no longer fits its pattern. I am silent, so you may learn what only the spiritually mature understand. Victory does not come when circumstances change. Victory comes when the old cycle looks at you and no longer recognizes who you are. The patience I teach you is not sitting still with empty hands, giving up and waiting for a random miracle like someone standing on the roadside watching fate go by. Patience is an inner action, you choosing to place yourself on heaven's frequency instead of the frequency of emotion. You choosing to stand beside me during the time I am working in realms you cannot yet see. You think waiting means doing less, thinking less, hoping less, expecting less, but with me, waiting is partnership. You keep the fire in your heart while I move behind the scenes. You watch every beat of time while I arrange every path. You remain steady while I close doors that do not belong to you. You once mistook patience for spiritualized helplessness, but in truth, it is the test of power. Those who do not know they belong to me will wait in fear. Those who know I am at work will wait in authority. I see you in the long nights when you do not know what to do except hold your heart together so it does not break. That is the image of the night watchman. He cannot make the sun rise any faster, but he keeps his post, so that when the light comes, it does not catch him off guard. He does not wander through the night hoping to find the sunrise. He stands where I placed him because he knows dawn is certain and does not need his strength to arrive. The night watchman is not passive. His hand stays on the spear, his eyes on the horizon, his soul in alertness. He does not try to end the night. He protects himself from the darkness. Patience in my way is like this. You do not drag the new day in with your restlessness. You guard your soul from any voice that might lure you away from your post before dawn. You are silent not because you have run out of strength, but because you know my timing is perfect. You have not yet realized that some miracles only come to those who know how to be patient in the right way. The impatient will open doors that are not ready and call them opportunities. The anxious will run from one piece of advice to another, believing wisdom lives where voices are most numerous. The weak will stand before heaven and say, "Why haven't you acted?" as if the lack of an immediate answer proves indifference. But the one who is patient in me stands firm like the night watchman. Though the heavens are quiet, though the night is cold, though there is no sign at all, they do not leave their position. What many souls call perseverance is often just clinging to fear. What you need is patience in partnership, not running ahead of me, not withdrawing from me, not pressuring me, not searching for shortcuts. You stand in the dark not to suffer, but to testify that you choose me, even when I do not speak. There are seasons when I do not want you to do anything more, not because I have abandoned you, but because I am working on a level you cannot touch. The more you try to force your way in, the more you disrupt what I am arranging. I know that some preparations can only happen in silence, like a seed in the soil, like metal in the furnace, like a child in the womb. A child cannot force its own growth in the womb. The mother carries the child, simply exists. And yet when you see everything go quiet, you panic and assume you have been forgotten. I do not need you to break that silence. I need you to cooperate with it. Patience is when you breathe in the dark without searching for another light to substitute the Sunday. Patience is when you refuse to use the noise of the world to drown out my voice. Patience is when you stop using the past as a compass for the future I am building. I have seen far too many souls ruin their blessing simply because they would not remain in the right place long enough. They chased human confirmation, they used frantic actions to soothe their fear, they searched for urgency to force destiny into their preferred schedule. But you will come to see that every shortcut is just a disguised delay. Every frantic race leads back to the same starting line under a new name. I place you in silence not to chain your feet, but to free your soul from its reflex to save itself. I want you to know that your salvation does not lie in your activity, but in your surrender. A soul that has learned patience is a soul that has discovered that partnership with me is stronger than any power you can muster in your fear. Patience is the invisible companionship. You do your part, guard your peace, hold your position, keep your faith, while I do. Mine shift the circumstances, open doors in the right moment, and cause all things to work together for your good. The silence I place over your life is not the death mark of hope, but the spiritual womb where life is formed before its unveiling. You are accustomed to measuring everything by what you can see, touch, and quantify. So when nothing moves in the external world, you assume everything has stopped. But I want you to understand that the greatest things in the kingdom are never born outside first. They are conceived in secrecy. Like a child in the womb, no one can see each cell multiplying, each strand of veins knitting together, each joint sealing in place, yet life continues to grow. No one can rush it, no one can pull it out of the mother's darkness before the appointed time, and no one can call such restraint a delay. Silence is the environment I choose to cultivate. What your eyes are not yet strong enough to bear, you often demand. Tell me so, I will not be afraid. But if I showed you everything, you would tear open the nest before the egg can hatch. A pregnant mother does not cut herself open just to check how much her child has grown. She knows that certain phases of life can only unfold in the protected darkness of the womb, where no light is allowed to intrude. I am the same. I guard the life I place within you through quietness, so that when it becomes large enough, no one will be able to dismiss it, and no one will have the strength to suffocate it. If I revealed everything at the moment, you wished you would call it a miracle, but I hide it in the right season, so that when it appears you will recognize destiny. Greatness never falls from heaven in sudden brilliance. It is incubated in patience, in tears, in days that seem meaningless, and in silence no one applauds. The child in the womb does not know it is growing. It does not know that those tiny fragments of cells are forming a spine, that faint tremors are becoming a heartbeat, that the muted echoes within the mother's body are signals of life. It simply exists, resting in the shelter of the one who carries it. You are the same. You do not realize that the days in which I remain silent are the days I am building new structure in your spirit. I am crafting vision into your eyes, forming endurance in your heart, training your soul to keep balance when the world trembles. There is nothing accidental about life being hidden inside a mother. It is the first message. Every greatness must pass through what is precious, must be protected, and often must endure darkness to be formed. The womb does not choose what enters the child. It only nourishes what is necessary. It does not care about outside voices, does not chase the schedules of the world, does not ask the doctor every hour how much the child has grown. It simply fulfills what nature has assigned, holding, sheltering, nourishing, protecting. This is the image I want your soul to enter when I am silent. I am not calling you to run after signs, nor asking you to chase the gaze of others, nor urging you to grab for affirmation. I only want you to become the womb of destiny, to know how to be silent, how to breathe, how to trust, how to live, how to endure, so what belongs to me can grow at its proper rhythm. You do not need to understand every detail. You only need to cooperate with me. There is a truth: impatient souls never grasp anything. You drag prematurely out of the womb will be unripe, fragile, and unsteady. Promises not incubated long enough will become burdens. Relationships not ordained to full maturity will become wounds. Doors you force open will become prisons. I am silent, so you will not snatch the child from the very process that gives it life. I am silent so you may accept that some things are not meant to arrive so you can possess them, but so you can become someone capable of carrying them. Greatness is always gestational. I know you want to see results, but I want you to have substance. I know you want to witness, but I want you to learn how to carry. I know you want to mark a new season, but I want you to become the season. Silence is not the absence of action. It is the atmosphere of unseen movement. Like life in the womb, it does not seek the stage lights, it seeks heartbeat. It grows not by urgency, but by trust that a hand is working where no one can see. I do not need you to understand everything yet. I need you to believe that I am brooding over you. When you learn to see silence as a womb rather than a grave, you will no longer fear the long night. You will recognize that night is the mother of dawn. You will understand that silence is the place where I am shaping a future your wisdom is not capable of designing. The world sees silence as failure, as proof of a wrong turn, as an empty space to be filled with activity or noise. But those who are spiritually mature Perceive silence as a necessary phase in the chosen journey where divine purpose is not driven by emotion, where identity is not eroded by comparison, where the soul learns to transform outward stillness into inward strength. The world asks, "Why has everything stopped?" But those who belong to me ask, "Father, what are you doing in this stillness?" The world runs to search for new answers, but you begin learning to stand beside me to receive the right answer. At this point, silence is no longer an empty sign, but becomes the window of time I use to restructure your essence, just as the desert is designed to peel off every noise until only my voice remains. The desert is where I work with those I choose, not those I indulge. There are no cheers, no applause, no favorable environment, only wind, heat, sand, and distance. Yet do not mistake it, the desert is not abandonment. The desert is where I make a soul stronger than comfort. The world calls the desert a dead zone, but I call it a forge. There, every excess falls away from you, illusions, wrong motives, masks you perform for others. You no longer have space to run, no one left to blame, no excuses to defend yourself. In the desert, it is only you and me, and when you finally see yourself under the light I cast, you understand that silence does not kill you. It kills the parts that do not belong to your destiny. Moses was once a prince of Egypt, praised, powerful, radiant in the eyes of men. But I did not use him when he stood beneath applause. I used him after he disappeared from human voices and was swallowed by 40 years of desert. No one remembered him, no one called his name, no one considered him hope. Yet there in the silence, despised by all, I taught him a new language, not the language of the palace, but the language of mission. I did not train him with crowds, I trained him with solitude. Those years were not wasted. They stripped away the hot blood of a man who wanted to save his people by human strength, replacing it with the obedience of a deliverer who would free them by heaven's power. Moses did not return to Egypt as one seeking opportunity. He entered as one who had already died to the urge to prove himself, and because of that I could place in his hand the staff of deliverance. You are becoming different from the world as you accept that outcomes do not come from forcing me to answer, but from allowing me to work in silence. The world measures worth by speed. What happens quickly is good, what delays is failure. But the spiritually mature know that the silent season is where I determine the depth you will carry. I do not build tall houses by raising upper floors before laying foundations. I do not form strong people by giving results before refining their souls. People see outcomes and admire them. I see the silence before the outcome and choose. Only the souls who have endured the seasons where no one sees them are strong enough to carry the seasons where every eye is fixed on them. The wilderness is not where you prove yourself. The wilderness is where you are refined. Their humility is not a decision, but the air you breathe. No one to impress, no one to compare, with no one to compete against. You must learn to anchor your value in me, not in the applause of the world. You must learn to determine direction from me, not from the reactions of circumstances. You must learn to stand in faith when every outer sign is silent. And when you learn that, you begin to resemble Moses, the one who emerged from the wilderness with the understanding, I was not chosen to win by my own strength. I was chosen to win by the presence of the one who sent me. By then you no longer argue with the world to prove that you are on the right path. You no longer need their responses to know that you are not wasting your life. You no longer seek validation in fast results to comfort your fear of failure. You become a soul that knows outcomes arrive after silence, not because I am slow, but because you have been forged into a vessel capable of carrying what I am about to give. And when it comes, you do not walk out like one begging for luck. You walk out like one who has crossed the wilderness and carries a fire no one can extinguish. My silence is like a mirror hung in the night, not bending itself toward bright lights, not reflecting according to noise, not warping your image to please anyone. In silence, you see yourself not through commentary, not through curious eyes, not through comparison with the world, but through the original lines I engraved in you. I know that your soul has lived too long by reaction praise, makes you soar criticism, makes you shrink human silence, makes you doubt your existence. You do not realize that I had to be silent to pull you away from the distorted mirror of society, where people only see what they want and call it your identity. I will not let you become the reflection of the world. I want you to become the reflection of me. Masks do not fall off in noise, they fall off in silence. When no one is watching, no one demanding, no one expecting, no one applauding, you are forced to ask, "Who am I?" if no one sees. And in that moment I stand before you, not through miracles, but through stillness. I do not call your name by profession, by status, by achievements, or by praise. I call your name by the identity I wrote before any earthly eye knew you. My silence does not strip you of anything real. It strips away everything you mistook for yourself. It removes the voice of parents who were disappointed, the voice of friends who mocked the voice of society that judged the voice of failures that once drowned you. I am not silent to leave your soul empty. I am silent to make space for truth to appear. The world teaches you to build identity on applause. If you are acknowledged, you have worth. If you are noticed, you deserve. If you are glorified, you are not invisible. But I do not teach you like that. I know that applause can build, but it can also destroy. It can raise you, but it can also cast you down. It can paint you as a symbol. But when silence returns, you will not know who you are. Those who live by applause will die in silence. Those who live by identity will stand when the noise fades. I am silent so you can choose the latter. In that silence you no longer perform, you simply live. You no longer stretch out your hands begging for validation. You begin to open them to receive what I have placed. When the mask falls, you do not see danger, you see liberation. No more pretending to be strong when you are weak, no more pretending to be humble when you are afraid, no more pretending to be joyful when your heart is shattered. I remove from you the burden of living under the expectations of others, so you can learn to live under to my formation. Masks are the fruit of reaction. You wear them to be loved, to be protected, to be accepted. But you cannot step into my destiny while living as an actor in the story of the world. I am silent, so you will learn to step off that stage, stand backstage, see yourself in the light. I place, then emerge again, not to perform, but to live truly. The world builds identity from achievement. I build identity from origin. The world asks, "What have you accomplished?" I ask, "To whom do you belong?" Applause speaks of temporary actions. Identity in me speaks of eternal roots. I am silent, so you no longer hear the murmur of the crowd, but hear the heartbeat I placed in you. When you cling to the world, you are a puppet pulled by strings of emotion. When you cling to me, you become a bearer of fire, unmoved by silence, unshaken by feedback, unbound by the desire to be seen. Your identity is not built in cheers. It is forged where no human witnesses. When you understand this, silence is no longer heaven's punishment. It becomes the privilege of the chosen. For only in silence can I place my hand upon your heart without interruption. Only in silence can you hear your own voice instead of the world's. Only in silence can you know that you are different, not because you are superior, but because you belong to me. You no longer need the world's reaction to know you are alive. You only need my gaze to know you exist. And when you emerge from that silence, you do not wear a mask, you carry identity. True identity is not something you earn by racing the world, nor a medal you wear to be valued. It is a foundation I have set deep within your soul, and when it is healed, it no longer seeks proof in order to survive. A healthy soul does not stand before the world's gaze looking for answers. It stands in me, like a rock in the raging sea. You have lived enough seasons to know that everything rooted in emotion can collapse. Praise today may become silence tomorrow. Admiration may become criticism. Those who walked with you may turn away without reason. But identity in me is like a stone in the flood, asking no water to stop flowing, trying not to justify itself, simply standing because I placed it there. As it is written, "The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. My God is my rock in whom I take refuge." Psalm 182. A soul that has not been healed always asks, is it enough? Enough to be good enough, to be strong enough, to be loved enough, to be chosen? That question becomes a rope around your neck, forcing you to perform, to shout, to bend yourself into the vague expectations of people. You receive a compliment and immediately whisper, "What if they change their mind tomorrow?" You hold an open door and tremble. "What if I cannot keep it?" You stand inside a blessing and your heart still shakes with the fear of loss. I do not want you to live like someone guarding a borrowed treasure. I want you to live like one who stands upon the rock that belongs to them. A wounded identity will always doubt. An identity I have touched stands still without needing proof. Not because it is arrogant, but because it knows it no longer needs to fight for safety in human hands. When I heal identity, the question, "Is it enough?" disappears. Not because you possess everything, but because you have learned that your source does not lie in what you hold. You no longer measure yourself by what your eyes can see. You measure by my presence. You no longer search for signs to prove I am with you. You know I am there even when the sky is silent. You no longer hunt for results to confirm your value. You see value in every breath I give. The world needs evidence to believe. You only need me to stand. When you stand on the rock, you do not require calm seas to feel peace, because peace does not come from the surface of the water, it comes from the foundation beneath. Waves may strike you, but you will no longer ask whether they are strong enough to break you. You will ask yourself, "What am I standing on?" Healing identity does not make you someone untouched by pain or trial. It makes you someone whose identity cannot be stolen by them. Tomorrow may arrive with things you did not expect. People may change their tone. Doors may close suddenly. Opportunities that seemed certain may fall from your hand. But when identity stands in me, you no longer bow your head begging for permission to continue living. You no longer scramble through the scorecard of your life when night falls. You no longer ask whether you are worthy to begin a new chapter. A healthy identity is not an empty promise that everything will be fine. It is the conviction that even when everything is not fine, I remain the rock. Your stability does not come from circumstances. It comes from belonging to me. When your identity is healed, silence ceases to be a threat. You do not hear me, but you no longer panic. You do not see a sign, but you no longer reevaluate your worth. You do not receive affirmation, but you no longer hunt for it from others. This is the crossroads between a mature soul and a young one. The young live by echoes of the world. The mature live by the rock. You no longer say, "Is it enough?" because you know the question was born from fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of diminishment, fear of replacement. I have dismantled those layers of fear one by one, not with comforting promises, but by letting you stand alone so you could see that I kept you standing. Once you experience that, no human voice can define you again. A subtle yet powerful transformation occurs when your soul no longer lives to be seen, but lives because it knows it has been seen by me. Before every gaze, every compliment, every gesture was a ruler to measure your worth. You entered new spaces whispering, "Will they accept me?" You began relationships trembling, "Will I be enough to make them stay?" You carried out assignments thinking, "If I fail, I lose my honor." But that is the life of someone begging for feedback just to justify existing. When I anchor your identity, those questions fall away like a cracked mask. You no longer walk into the world as someone pleading for a place. You walk into it as someone carrying life. When the mask falls, you no longer seek legitimacy from the outside. You do not need a corridor of applause to walk firmly. You only need the ground I place beneath your feet. Identity is stable not because you have proven enough. It is stable because you have stopped proving. You do not create impressions to be loved. You love because you have been received. You do not cling to people to avoid loneliness. You know, my presence fills you so deeply that solitude is no longer a threat. People may leave, but you do not leave yourself. They may not understand you, but you do not lose purpose. The world may fall silent, but you do not mistake silence for worthlessness. For you have learned heaven does not need an audience to operate. You begin living as the source when you no longer approach others to take but to give. The unhealed ask, "What will they give me?" The one I have positioned asks, "What have you placed in me to give to them?" The wounded soul walks into every relationship to see if it is enough. The healed soul knows that enough never came from the other, it came from me. And then you no longer cling to people like floating debris. You become the harbor others seek when storms arise. Not because you are perfect, but because you are steady. Not because you never hurt, but because you have learned not to let pain define you. The world gives power to the past and to opinions. You give power to me, the one who does not change. I make you different in a way the world will never understand you. No longer react, you initiate. Those who live by human praise rise at compliments and collapse at criticism. Those who live in identity know that human praises are only wind. Wind may be loud, but it has no roots. The rock is silent, but it never moves. The immature ask, "How do I convince them I am worthy?" The mature in me say, "If they must see to believe, they are not the ones I sent." You do not need to defend a title. The title I give you defends itself. Your stability does not rest on repetition. It rests on what I speak once, because once is enough. When you know who you are in me, you stop searching for a role. You do not arrive to fit into their mold. You arrive to fulfill purpose. You no longer twist your soul to fit society's shape. You no longer live in the timid posture of someone terrified of being exposed as not enough. You no longer hide your wounds for fear of being abandoned. You step into your life as one already confirmed in a place higher than every hall of applause. I have taken your name and carved it into my heart. No human voice can erase it. The one begging for validation always looks up at the balcony to see if anyone is still clapping. The one wearing my affirmation looks to heaven and asks, "Father, what do you want me to do today?" I do not want you to live merely escaping doubt. I want you to live exercising authority. The one rooted in identity does not try to keep their place. They create space where the mission I have given them can unfold. The unhealed ask, "If I do this, what will they think?" The mature ask, "If I do not do this, who will be left behind?" When you stand in my peace, you no longer fear what the world might take from you. Instead, you become the one the world can draw from. This is the moment I declare you are stepping out of the stage of searching for identity and into the stage of carrying identity, not pursuing it. You will never understand my silence if you see it only as the space between two prayers, two answers, or two miracles. My silence is not the in-between. It is a holy ground I use to pull you out of the noises you created, out of the fears you have hidden, out of the old wounds you believed you had forgotten, out of the roles you have worn for years that your soul has never rested from. I do not speak to comfort you in the way you want. I remain silent to break the locks that imprison you inside an old perception of yourself. I am silent, so your soul must face the question that no one else can answer for you. Do you trust me enough to stand in my silence? You always seek dazzling signs, thunderous voices, vivid dreams, or immediate answers, but I have chosen the opposite method. I choose quiet so you will not lean on emotion. I choose stillness so you will not rely on imagination. I choose silence so you will not depend on impressions from others. Only when every other voice falls away do you become able to hear mine, which is as gentle as breath, not because I am weak, but because my voice is deep. I do not compete for attention with the trivial. I simply ask for one place within your soul where you are willing to listen. You once asked me, "Why do others hear you, while I hear only silence?" But you did not know that my silence toward you is not absence, it is privilege. Weak souls must be carried. Souls I train to carry assignments must be forged in silence. I think farther ahead than each moment you experience. I do not see only what you are facing. I see who you will be 10 years from now, the generations you will touch, the doors you will open for those collapsed in darkness. I must shape you through silence, so your identity does not depend on the reactions of the world. The peace within you cannot be built on praise, for one day praise will fall silent. The confidence you carry cannot be built on achievements, for one day achievements will shake. I want you to stand on me on the ground. No circumstance can reach, no word can tear down, no season can knock you from the place I have set you. There were days when you believed I had left. You looked around and found no sign. You wondered whether your prayers reached heaven or simply fell to the earth beneath your feet. You walked with silence sitting upon you like stone. But you did not understand that this silence was proof that I was very near. I do not grow you by removing every obstacle from your path. I grow you by letting you face the empty space and still stand. Spiritual maturity is not a soul that is always hearing. It is a soul that holds trust even when it hears nothing. I have seen every time you were angry with me, every time you wanted to give up, every time you cried through the night, yet you still rose to the morning after. I have seen you trembling, yet you still placed your feet on the ground and breathed. And those breaths were hidden praises you never recognized. I was there not on the stage, but in the inner room of your soul. You think victory is a moment of brilliance before the eyes of the world, but I teach you that victory begins when you no longer let silence make you doubt me. Victory begins when you no longer ask, "Why haven't you done it?" but "What are you doing?" Victory begins when you no longer ask, "When will I see it?" but "Give me eyes to see." Victory begins when you no longer beg for certainty, but ask for strength to keep walking even without certainty. You do not know that the silence I placed upon you is the place where you began to be different. Others need assurance to continue. You need only me. Others need to see the shoreline before they swim. You need only to know I am in the water. Others need applause before they dare to step forward. You need only to remember the whisper I once spoke. You belong to me. I have allowed you to walk through seasons without giving answers. Not because I wanted you to suffer, but because I wanted you to grow. I want you to know that true worth does not come from being seen, but from being unstealable. I want you to understand that everything you thought was an ending was merely a testing ground for the endurance of your soul. I want you to learn to regard silence as instruction, not as a sentence. When you no longer live to escape silence, you begin to live to give meaning to it. You stop asking how much longer, and begin asking, who must I become? That is the moment I know you are ready. Not because you are perfect, but because you finally understand that my silence is not abandonment. It is an invitation into higher identity. And now hear this not as comfort, but as appointment. You have crossed the territory where childish souls usually collapse. You have stood in thirst without selling your soul to other voices. You have looked at silence not as a pit, but as a sky not yet revealed with stars. You have tasted loss without losing belief. You have entered a room with no answers, yet refused to trade me for cheap responses. Because of this, I entrust to you what many beg for, and yet never receive the ability to stand without needing proof. When you step out of this silence, you will not walk as one who waits for miracles, you will walk as one who carries them. You will not walk as one who begs for light, you will walk as one who bears a flame no one can extinguish. Remember this final truth and carve it deep. When I am silent, I do not leave you behind. I am preparing you to move ahead. I do not take my voice from you. I am carving space within you so that my voice may be heard more clearly. I do not close the path. I am teaching you to walk upon it with the legs of faith. You are not waiting for me to answer. You are learning how to become my answer to this world. And when you understand this, every silence you once feared will become evidence that I have been rooting you in the soil of heaven, so that one day you may rise without fearing the wind stand, without requiring the world's approval, and live as one chosen by me, not because you possess everything, but because you belong to me. Thank you for listening to today's message. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so we can continue receiving the living word, building unshakable faith, and walking in the boundless love of God. Amen.